So there's a lot of people that are giving great solutions, finding, and creating amazing schools. I want to hear those stories. That's what I want to hear about. And like, show me what I could have when we go to this school, not like why I shouldn't go somewhere else. That to me, so I really appreciate that. I was going to say my math brain, you're like, you have 53 challenges and you had 107 contributors. So there's a little, I'm just saying, it was
Well,
almost
there
like
are
everyone
multiple
did half.
solutions for
I'm just
each
saying,
problem.
it's just like half. Do you know what I mean? I'm saying it's like you needed 106 exactly. I'm like, what happened to 107? Where you get 53, 107, right? Like you
Well,
almost like everyone got half except someone did.
the four of the authors, we also like contributed some of our own
I know.
stories.
It's
So
like
I
my own
guess
thing.
technically we're
This
at
is me.
111 if you count us
Oh,
too.
now you're just messing math up. All right. Okay. Okay. So here's what I want to ask you about specifically. So I want to hone in on retention. So tell me a little bit about that chapter, maybe one of the strategies or solutions that somebody found in their own community or one that you all shared. Give me a little bit about retention so that people kind of get a preview of like what one of the chapters would be.
So first of all, every chapter starts the same way and ends the same way. We
Okay.
have a comic. Marianne's an artist. So there's a comic that, kind of takes a humorous jab at what the problem is with all the crazy stuff teachers and educators have to do.
Right.
So you start with that grounding. Then there's like an overview of the whole chapter that kind of explains what the problem is in context. And then you have each of the problems, and the problem is short, and the solution is the bulk of what's going on. So the first one, for example, is diversity, like hiring practices,
Yep.
making sure that we have a nice, diverse, representative staff.
This is on the retention one you're talking about? Okay.
Yes,
Yes.
in the in getting
Okay.
people to stay
Yeah,
Gotcha.
in
getting
that
it's
chapter.
right,
Yeah.
it's getting people to stay. And then so there's hiring practices, teacher retention, leader retention, staff retention, and student enrollment. Those are the five major problems that we're seeking to solve. And under each one of those problems, we have then maybe six, like maybe anywhere between 3 and 10 solutions that fit under that heading. And one for pipeline growth is like the job. It's actually, this was before I got my job at PDK doing this. And so James Lane and John Hedren, who work with that organization, submitted stuff about the program itself and the things that they have done to help grow your own teacher pipelines
Mhm.
in school districts and different ways that you could cultivate students in your community. Because research suggests that most teachers work within 20 miles of where they end up teaching within 20 miles of where they actually went to school.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yep. And on our call yesterday, while we were celebrating the launch, a friend of mine, Mark Erlenwine, who is a principal at Staten Island Tech, he actually was a student there, and so was several people on his staff. So it's kind of amazing when you think about just the way that we build these really special communities that people become a part of.
All right, Alex. So this book is obviously we're facing tons of issues in education, and I really appreciate that you're really solution focused. Who should be reading this book? Like, where is the group that you're targeting? Is this for teachers, administrators, a little bit of everybody? How did you position it?
So we wrote it for the leader, but we also recognize that the leader doesn't necessarily have to have the title. So teachers in the classroom are leaders in
Yeah.
their own right. And so we wanted to write the book so that teachers could pick it up and say, ooh, this is something I could employ in my class, with my team, with my grade level. But we also wrote it so that leaders, whether it's a principal or a
Mm.
superintendent, or even somebody at a state leadership level or a national leadership
Right.
level, could pick it up and say, this is something that could apply across the board and this could help me. So we tried to include voices from all of those respective levels. We have teachers who are currently in the classroom. We have principals who contributed. We have or superintendents who contributed. We have leaders from state organizations, from nonprofits. So we tried to bring all of those voices into the space because it's for the leader.
Mhm.
But the leader is, if you are in education, you are a leader. In fact, even our students are leaders sometimes.
Mhm.
So we wanted to bring that leadership lens because leadership is what helps to promote that transformative change. And it's what helps to facilitate that long-term growth.
Mhm.
It's really kind of grounded in that growth mindset approach where just because this is something that we're struggling with right now, that doesn't mean it has to be something we continue to struggle with. And yeah, so it's for the leader, but the leader is all of us, in our opinion, I think
Yeah,
is the right way to say it.
we always felt like too, like teachers read up, but leaders don't necessarily read down, if
Mhm.
that makes sense.
Yep.
So, like I'm thinking though, like the data chapter is very applicable to teachers.
Yeah.
There are some really solid solutions on how to use data effectively from formative and summative sort of lenses, not just at the school-wide lens, but also at the PLC level lens. And the same thing with grading practices, although we acknowledge that grading is something that is often institutionalized in schools. Um, there's autonomy in classrooms, and so thinking about different ways to assess and think about student learning. And then there's our final chapter, which I think you and I were like really the most proud of. It departs is an epilogue of like a reimagining of what school can be if 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 the stars are aligned and we're able to get to those best practices for kids in those space. So like we try to imagine what that would look like for folks who could get there. And then we'll come work at that school when they make it to
Well,
that.
that imagination though like that came from the stories that were contributed to the
Yes.
book about how people had solved. So we were so inspired by the way that individuals had iterated through these challenges, and we kind of took all of those, captured all of those in that epilogue and described how all of those individuals have said this is school, like this is how students learn, and this is how teachers feel valued, and this is how leadership can challenge something that's not working. And so we lovingly call it the everything guide because we feel like it's
I love that.
dealing with everything.